Well, I'd like to start by giving a big welcome to everybody coming and joining us on our district pets session. I'd especially like to introduce Peter, who most of you have met before. Peter is our district trainer who works with me on the journey through the district governor years. And so you'll get to know him even more as we continue through this year and through your year as president. Nancy is our executive administrator for the district, and she is responsible for all sorts of things that make this district work, and I really appreciate all that she is doing.
You're welcome.
And I also want to introduce Lauren Calder, our district governor, and I don't see Shirley, Pat, or Drew, but their district governor nominee and district governor nominee designate, and part of the governor team, along with Darcy Long. So we do have one addition to our agenda tonight, and that is that with all that's happening in Ukraine and with what Rotary is taking a look at, Lauren has been doing a fabulous job of trying to keep up with all that's going on there. And Lauren will give us a briefing at the end of the session on where we're at with Ukraine and Rotary. So, and whatever else, but yes. So we've got that scheduled at the end. So district pets, if anybody isn't aware, is something that would have happened in Seattle had we had pets in Seattle. We were, yeah, yes, I saw that, Lauren, and I feel totally the same way. We would have had it on Friday afternoon in Seattle, and it would have been a much longer session than we're dealing with here, but we had some mercy in terms of people have already done a terrific amount with pets and Zoom, and of course Zoom and all the other parts of our lives. And so we're holding this to one session, which we're repeating on Saturday. But we aren't going to go into the same depth and detail as we would have done had we had the 4 or 5 hours that we were planning to have face-to-face in Seattle. But today we want to share some thoughts about the upcoming year and our plans. And we want to hear what are your concerns as you come out of pets and look to your year leading your club. And we want to give you a chance to interact with each other as you move to implement your club enhancement plan. So that's the basic plan for tonight. Peter, do you want to do the first poll now?
Yes, we just want to check in with you as to how you feel at this stage about your course in the year as a PE. And so we'll do a quick poll if we could. And okay, I think we've finished that. So you can see the results of that, and sort of mix of levels of confidence. But if you're not, particularly it's the first time out, that would be quite understandable. And we just want to gauge as we go along with you and hope we can help you out some way.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Peter. And we'll be opening the floor for discussion. And so people may have thoughts to elaborate on as part of that. Moving into a bit of overview of where we are with the pets experience. Peter sent out a note a little while ago that outlined where we were with some of the courses and the links. And not everybody has completed all the parts of pets to this point. And we really, we understand there's lots of things happening in people's lives. Some of you, this is not the first time that you've been a president of your Rotary Club. We do, and people get tired of Zoom, frankly. We understand that, and tired of being on the computer in courses. And we do understand that. Having said that, there's a lot of good material, and there's a lot of material that you will find useful in your journey leading your club. So we very much want to encourage, if you haven't already done this, there are 12 courses on the Learning Center that are an integral part of PETS. 4 more that are optional, but they included 12 in their basic plan for PETS because they didn't want to duplicate the material there that was on the Learning Center already with the courses that they were putting on. And so they're still there, and they will be, and you can take them. The core courses, if you missed any, if you missed any of them, they're available. Peter sent the link. They're also on the Pacific Northwest PETS site. The priority courses, they're not on the site, but we did send the link. And these are the tapes of the sessions. Of course, they do not include the breakout sessions. So their downside is that you don't get to participate at this point, but the upside is they're a little shorter. The plenary sessions, and there were some, as those of you who got them all know, there were some exceptional speakers, and those are available, again, through link and on the Pacific Northwest PETS website. And the final part of PETS is that we also do district PETS, and it's all part of the same package. And it starts with the pre-PETS that we did last month on Zoom. Goes through tonight, the district PETS that would be part of the basic PETS in Seattle. And also we may do a post-PETS check-in likely in May. And so that is kind of the basic outline of what we do with PETS. And we really want that to be as effective as it can possibly be. And there are some lessons learned always for the next year. There is a survey that I think everybody's gotten now already from PETS. And so that feedback is very much invited. But we also invite your thoughts, both in terms of the PETS experience in terms of going forward, because your successors are going to be pretty interested in having an effective PETS, but also in terms of any gaps. If there are things that you can identify right now that you're missing, sure, let us know, and we'll see what we can do. And if people can't handle, for whatever reason, some of the things that they've missed, if we have to, we will get somebody to talk to you. Because we really we are committed, our training community is committed to trying to make sure our leaders in the clubs are prepared for their year. So I'll stop there and ask if there's any discussion.
Where's the little hand? Actually, I do have something to say, and I was looking for the hand, but I couldn't find it. So, yes, oops.
It's the reaction button. If anybody's looking for it, it's the reaction button at the bottom of your screen.
Sorry, I've just lost my screen. So.
Oh, no, that's okay. We can hear you, Lydia. It's all good.
Can you? Okay, that's terrific. I've just got an upgrade message from Zoom. There we go. Anyway, my thought was, because there's a lot of people who've been presidents before, and there's lots of people who've done the leadership seminars that, you know, used to be given in Burnaby and elsewhere, I think. So some of the core courses that are mandatory are repetitions of all that stuff that many of us have done before. And that's okay, you still get to meet some people and so on and so forth. However, what I wonder about is, could there be some kind of enhanced programming in place of the core courses for those presidents who have already been presidents and could use a different level of inspiration, or could use more detailed information, or whatever. I don't know what those things would be, but I have been part of other organizations that did that, because otherwise they were losing their participants who had already been through the basic programs many times. So it's just something I'm sure that it's been talked about, but I haven't heard any words about that. So.
Okay, well, somebody else may want to add, but it certainly has been talked about, and it's been more than talked about. I mean, they've made plans to have different sessions in Seattle for the people that are second second time around or whatever. And I've been through that because I was actually 3 times a club president, so I know well what you're talking about. And I did from my standpoint, the good news was that I learned something. Every time I learned something, because you see something different, you think of something different. There's different content. The content does change a bit, so you do learn something. But I totally agree. It would be way better if we have this tailored a bit to our different sub audiences, as it were. Lauren, do you want to add anything? I mean, you've been through this more than I have.
Yeah, 2 years ago, actually, if we had Pets Live last year in Seattle, we were going to have specific classes with repeat presidents sharing their stories, because ultimately the sharing of stories is the most important part of president-elect training. It's not so much a curriculum, but actually just putting on and having the group meet together. And that got kiboshed. So we went on like 9 months of training. So God help us, right, type thing. So we didn't want to repeat that. And so I know this has been on the dais for a long time, because you're right. Ultimately, repeat presidents do want a value, and the value comes in through conversations with other people of similar nature.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, well, we can move right along then. Peter, did you want to run the other poll now, or did you want to wait?
Sure, might as well. Just a fairly straightforward one. If you bear with me. And okay, so how have the Learning Center and pets met your needs in preparing to become a club president? Be honest. We can't track who's responding. I think we're about done. So here we go. So a mix again, but it's good to see quite a lot. That's a good vote, and at least there's no negative ones. So it seems to be worthwhile in some fashion or other for everyone. So thank you.
Okay, okay, thank you, Peter. Okay, now I'd like to say something about, and before I start on this next part, I'd like to say that we'd ask you to hold questions till the end. I'm going to cover a number of topics, and rather than be moving back and forth here with discussion and back into different topics, I think it's probably better if we run through and then we hold any questions for the end. So I'll give you the heads up on that, because we're covering enough topics that you may want to just jot a note down or something if you've got a question in the early going, so that we catch it. Now, I'd like to say something about our district plans and priorities for next year and beyond, and invite comments and questions. One of the things that, incidentally, that I when I say this year, next year, and beyond, one of the things that I want to stress is that we have a governor team that works together, and we really do try to remember that we need to work as a team, and we need to work together across years. And it's something that's come increasingly into Rotary, and it's something that I think is it's tremendously valuable. And so I would suggest that we really want the same kind of approach. We want to promote, encourage the same kind of approach at the clubs. Really, we really need to take a look at more than a year. It's absolutely true that we need change, and we need to be open to change. And that happens from year to year, but we need to work together on that change that happens from year to year. So we try and show that at district because we think it really works well for us. And I just want to flag that as something that I think really works well at clubs as well. Strategic planning process. We have embarked on a strategic planning process again with the district. We kind of had our problems with strategic planning through Zoom. We couldn't do it the same way as we did it through COVID as we did it before because we're used to having face-to-face sessions. But we have gone ahead and we were planning a face-to-face session this last month. Didn't happen. We flipped to Zoom and with all the challenges that come with Zoom and so on. But we had some really good sessions. And we're still working on that with the assistant governors, governor team, committee chairs, particularly John Bathurst, who heads our strategic planning group with Bala Naidu. Many of you will have seen them because they're providing a fantastic service to clubs. And we also took advantage of that to say, okay, well, you might as well provide the same service to district and lead our district strategic planning, which they've done. And you will see we're still a little way away from being finished the current round. And when we do, we'll share. So that's something that I'd expect probably May, June, we'll be rolling out some paper that or electronic material, as the case may be, with respect to strategic planning. Often at District Pets, we explore selected priorities in some depth. And we're not doing that today because, as I mentioned, we're trying to keep this to a relatively dull roar in terms of what we're giving you as part of this one session. But I'll say a few words about some of them. Just as for individual Rotarians, clubs can't do it all in Rotary. We have to make choices. We have to have priority. The thing is that Rotary offers this huge wealth of choices of things that we can do. Heavens, I can't understand all of them. I haven't assimilated everything that happens in Rotary, and let alone be able to do it all. I mean, it just doesn't happen. So we do have to make choices. And that means that if we're doing this rationally, strategic planning is really important for all of us. And it's not just for district, it's for clubs. We really need to make conscious decisions about what it is we're going to do as part of our Rotary experience. And that's how we do things well. That's how we achieve results. And we shouldn't be afraid to say we're doing some of these things and we're not doing other things. Often I find it's a volunteer-based question as to how much we can do, because that's our most precious, valuable, and yet scarcest resource is volunteer time. And so we have to be careful about how we handle that. We have to try and be mindful about being efficient in terms of how we handle volunteer time and remember that we only have so much of it. The purpose of district is something that I want to really stress. And the purpose of district is quite simple. It's to support clubs. And that is really the core of why we have districts. It's to support clubs. And that's our priority. And it needs to be. And districts can do other things. And Rotary International envisages that we might. But the only thing that we are really required to do is to support clubs. And it's that core. And how we do that, of course, includes asking you for cooperation, information, input, and sometimes it's not clear how we're supporting you, but we want that to be clear because what we're doing has a purpose, including things like organizing how we work together better, how we work together across clubs. That's how we're more effective as clubs. So it's indirect as well as direct, but the purpose of district is very much to support clubs. We want district to provide club leaders with easy access to resources. Your key contact is your assistant governor. The governor team, executive administrator Nancy, our incoming executive assistant governor Murray Wood, committee chairs, the website, these are all resources that are there for supporting clubs. And we encourage you to take advantage of them, and we encourage you to become familiar with them if you don't know them. And again, your assistant governor is a great resource and pathfinder there. The presidential theme I want to touch on, Imagine Rotary. You've heard it from Jennifer, and I'm not going to get into it terribly far here, but I do want to say that we will be trying to honor the presidential theme. You will hear more about it as we keep going. One of the things that I do want to highlight that from the theme discussion is the diversity, equity, and inclusion world. That's something that Jennifer has made very clear that she wants to develop further. Our district has done a lot there. It turns out I, of course, have been part of training with other district governors-elect, and so you get to see a little bit about what's happening in other districts. We're well advanced in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of where we are. Ardith Paxton Mann is our chair of that committee, and we've had a viable committee that Dave Hamilton was part of setting up, and he was instrumental in getting that going with Marnie Fraser and Ardith. And Ardith and Peter Rofe have done, Peter's done a marvelous job in support of that, including the survey that hopefully most of you have were part of. So we're rolling right along with DEI, and it's something that you will hear a bit more about. And for anybody who isn't sort of familiar with it and is just thinking it's one more thing, remember that it ties nicely to membership, and it's something that's got all sorts of different benefits when you think it through. Some other priorities for the year ahead. We will be having year ahead sessions, which district has every year. We don't have a date yet, but we will have a year ahead session in April, I think, with a date to be confirmed, except for the foundation session. That date is already confirmed. It's April 21 and 23, I think. That is the foundation training session. And a reminder that is compulsory, that every club have somebody there. We'd really like you to have 2 people there. But if you want to have any grants, you need to be trained. And so you need to have the sessions. And there's also the session on the Learning Center. So foundation, we're big in foundation in this district. We always have been. And I'm really pleased, if anybody didn't see, that we've got our current district governor, Lauren Calder, is succeeding Del Paterson as the chair of our district foundation committee. So we're in great shape with foundation, and so you'll be hearing more there. We also, of course, will be highlighting membership development. That's always there. It's the lifeblood of Rotary, of course, is our membership. And so we'll be certainly, we've got we've got a really active committee. Dennis and Vaughn is, who's on the call incidentally, is, or at least, yeah, there you are, is chairing that. And Shirley Pat Chamberlain was his predecessor, who's our district governor nominee, and she's still vitally involved in membership. So we've got a great district committee. And that's a resource that we really want to encourage the clubs to use. And many of the clubs have. There's been a pilot project. There's a variety of initiatives, and it's something that for presidents-elect, hopefully membership is top of the list kind of thing. Cause-based clubs are something that is a relatively new innovation with Rotary, and we're very much encouraged to promote the concept of cause-based clubs. Jennifer Jones has asked the district governors-elect to each try to come up with 2 new cause-based clubs next year. Now that's for us for sure. That's a stretch, but we will try to do what we can do to get some cause-based clubs going. We've got lots of potential causes. It's a case of can we organize around that? And we've had some ideas, and Lauren has been really making progress in a couple of areas. They haven't yet shown up as a club, but we may get there. Our public information, public relations committee is going to be, continues to be another priority. And our youth committee, all the work we do in youth, again, it's an ongoing priority, and our peace committee. And there's all sorts of things that are happening in peace. We've got a peace facilitation group that John Anderson has been heading, and you've no doubt seen the peace facilitators around doing things with the clubs. And we're going to be restructuring that a little bit, and Ardith is going to be taking on an umbrella peace committee role, because we're going to be looking at what we're doing, what we could be doing that we're not now doing in peace, because there is so much. We have the peace scholars with Gloria Stout, but there is a lot that we may want to look at doing in peace, and have more peace clubs, for instance. Moving along, I want to mention visit schedule. As you know, our tradition is that the district governor visits the clubs, and Lauren Calder, hats off, Lauren got it done with all the challenges. This was pretty interesting time to try and get that done. And I think you got almost all of them done face to face. I mean, not quite, mostly because a couple of clubs just weren't meeting face to face, but Lauren got around. And when you come from Prince George, that's, another little challenge for getting around the district. So that was terrific. I want to see every club face to face. I'm going to make every effort to do that, but it's the realities of COVID and all of that. Keep our fingers crossed, but I have every intention of visiting every club face to face, and I'll work with the assistant governors in terms of schedule. I'm not yet ready to talk to you about a schedule, because I was waiting for COVID to see where we were at for opening up. So it looks like we're open enough, and I'll try and make some plans and give you hopefully a fair bit of notice. Administration. I want to talk a bit about administration. We hear about all the administrative requirements in Rotary and all the red tape and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And any of us at district are not without sympathy to that. I mean, sometimes, it looks like district and Rotary International is just demand about do this, do that. And some of it is necessary. But what we hope to do is to minimize that load, but recognizing both that we want to minimize it and we want to do what needs to be done, because that's actually a way that minimizes our time. Ironically enough, is if we can make sure that we get done what we need to do in the administrative world and make sure we're setting up systems so that it happens, then we don't waste a ton of time chasing around trying to get our administrative needs met. So some of this is just a case of efficiency. One of the things that we do need, and we ask you for, is goals that go into Rotary Club Central. And we'll say something more about that, I think, at the end, about if you need help with that. But we need to get the goals into Rotary Club Central for your club, and we track those over the year. And you work with your assistant governors on that. And we're trying to streamline that system so that we are using less indicators than we have been using. And we'll be sticking mostly to what's in Rotary Club Central and asking you for relatively little above what's in Rotary Club Central. I want to talk too about in the other big thing that I want to talk about in the administrative world that is required is criminal record checks. And criminal record checks are not optional for people who are working with youth or vulnerable adults. They are simply not optional. And it's important that we understand and take that on board. If people don't want to work with youth and vulnerable adults, they don't have to have a criminal record check. So it's not something that's compulsory that when you join Rotary, you must have one. You can't be a Rotary without one. No, you can. But if you're going to work with youth or vulnerable adults, you must have one. And we're doing way better with that. We're getting lots more in. Clubs are getting them, and that's terrific. We have asked for reports from the clubs about where you are with the people that need them, that must have them, the people that work with youth and vulnerable adults. We've asked for a list as to who those people are, and that includes volunteers who are not Rotarians, but who are working on behalf of your club, if you have those, and what the status is for CRCs. Also, we've asked for an attestation or an MOU that that your list is complete and that these are the people that are working with youth and vulnerable adults. And we need that both in terms of certification with Rotary, where we can be audited for some things, and where we're quite vulnerable because we just don't know who the clubs have entirely that are working with youth and vulnerable adults. And we need to have that. And also, as far as insurance is concerned, it's part of our youth protection policy. And we're telling our insurance agent that we're following our youth protection policy. And until we have that list from all the clubs, we can't really attest to that. So we're pushing that, but it's been slow. I will tell you, it's been slow getting it from the clubs. And you, of course, this is your current presidents have been told, and the assistant governors are working with them, and hopefully this is all done for this year before you're taking office as president, but we will need them updated from time to time as well. So hence the soliloquy here from me that we really, really need those. And again, that's one of those things where it's not that difficult to fill out. And if we get it done, we save all of us a whole pile of time chasing around trying to get them. So another thing on admin is the suggestion that clubs and presidents-elect in particular look at the option of recruiting volunteers to do some of the administrative functions that need to happen, so that you as president of your club aren't the focus for everything that moves here in terms of communication, administration, and so on. And the one thing you can do is to ask somebody, if you've got somebody in your club who's interested and adept at doing some of these things, including Rotary Club Central, is that they take that on for more than 1 year, and that they're the person that kind of does that as a bit of an ongoing volunteer role. And again, once you're into doing it, it's not a big deal. So that's an option. But we also would be better if we had a youth protection officer at each club, so that that's somebody that is responsible for an oversight of youth protection generally, but also CRCs could be part of that. And we ask also that you identify directors on Club Runner for different things. And if you do that, like for youth, for membership, for foundation, they can receive information directly, and they will receive information directly, instead of it having to go to you, and then you have to send it on and ask them to deal with it. And if they're getting it directly, it saves you work, and they get it a little faster than if you have to pass it on and might miss it or whatever. We're looking for volunteers at district, always. And public information, public relations is a real priority right now. Sadly, we lost Andrea Johnson, as many of you will know, and that's a huge loss. And Andrea was in her 3rd year. We were already looking for a replacement, but for July 1. But of course, this has been a very sudden gap, and my certainly appreciation is there for Peter Rofe, because he's agreed to step in and deal with that with that file in the meantime. And Peter, on top of everything else he's doing with the DEI world and being district trainer and so on, has taken some of that on as well. Now, Peter was Andrea's predecessor in the role, so he's seasoned and he knows what he's doing. But my goodness, thank you so much, Peter, for taking that on. And he's trying to set us up for next year. But if anybody has folks who might be good on a committee, have some background, have some interest in public information, please let us know, because we need to put together a real committee. And so this isn't just a case of looking for a chair, it's a case of looking for people that want to work on it. And you know, Peter would be very happy to receive, so would I, any suggestions that you might have there. When the other thing is with district is that please consider down the road, please consider a district role yourself. I know that you're going to be engaged, very much engaged with your role as president-elect for now and your role as president. And so you should, and you need to concentrate on that. But there are district roles that may be a good fit for you. And please think about that as you get exposed to what we're doing at district, and see what might work after your year as club president. And when folks volunteer at district, one thing that I love to stress is that we're all still active members of our club. There's terrific synergy with that, because what we do as volunteers with the club and what we do as volunteers with district, they kind of bounce off each other, and it contributes to a greater whole. And it's really important that any of our district volunteers are still actively engaged in their club. The club is the basic building block of Rotary, always. And that's why that fits right into the purpose of district being to support clubs, is that the club is the basic unit in Rotary. And so sometimes that's obvious, but I think it bears a little bit of reminding, repeating, as we get engaged in some of the things at district, at zone, working with Rotary International, all good. But the bottom line is still that the basics are with the club. Before closing, I'd like to touch on installations. I'm sure you're planning yours. Happy to attend as many as I can, but you should also feel free to invite any of us from the governor team. It's you know, Lauren, Shirley, Pat, Drew, myself. You can ask any of us. We may not be available, and we're going to say no sometimes. We have to, but you know, we're all pretty open to working with clubs, and you know, I especially think that it's a great introduction for Shirley, Pat, and Drew, because they get to know some of the clubs a little bit before they're actually into the district governor role. I mean, I certainly feel with COVID, I was planning to do lots of without COVID, I was planning to do a number of club visits without before I became district governor-elect, but that didn't kind of work out. But it's certainly any opportunities like installation, I feel free to invite people. The district installation, I'm pleased to announce, is going to be June 21 in New Westminster. And we'd love to see as many of you as can make it. So it's June 21 in New West. And well before the installations, you should have your theme banners. And the original plan with the theme banners was that you'd have them at Pets. We are asked to order these things well ahead of time, and we did. And they ideally would have been delivered actually in the States, which would have saved a few things like duty. And we'd have gotten our package and distributed it all at Pets in Seattle. That didn't work. So what our plan now is that we've got assistant governor training and the Lower Mainland Foundation dinner is happening on April 23. So we're going to have the assistant governors together. So our plan is to give them to the assistant governors. And so they will get a package. The package will include the theme banners. It will also include the theme pins for the year. And we've got one for every Rotarian. And it will also include a theme brief bag that you'd have gotten, as each of you as presidents-elect would have gotten in Seattle, and we've still got it for you, but we have to figure out how to get it to you. So the plan will be to get it to the district governor, the assistant governors, and they will get you this material, and hopefully in time for your installation, because we really hope that you're there with the theme banner and so on and pins and so on for your own installation. So I'm flagging that now, so you know to remind your assistant governors if you haven't got the material. They should have the material as of April the 23. Finally, I want to encourage you to feel free to challenge your district. I welcome it personally. As I said earlier, our purpose in district is to support clubs, and we want to do that better. And we can only do that if you're telling us what you feel in terms of your needs, how we're doing, and when we ask for something, does it help? Does it use your time efficiently? Are you seeing the benefit? And please let us know. I mean, it's one of the things that, just from a personal standpoint, I kind of find that we sometimes have a bit of tendency to be polite with each other to the point that we stop being frank. And we need to be frank. We need to be constructive, because goodness knows that as in any volunteer organization, the dialogue can go south if we're being frank, and people get concerned about being attacked, whatever. All that kind of stuff is danger. But the thing is that I want to say, as far as I'm concerned, as far as district is concerned, please let us know if you've got ideas, if you've got suggestions, if you've got concerns. Let's keep it constructive. Totally. I totally want it to stay constructive. It's really important, but it is important to be frank. So I just want to say, please let us know. And with that, I will stop and open it to questions.
I'm curious, is there a date that district is wanting us to have our goals entered by?
I will refer to Nancy for that, because she is before I make a misstep.
So our next report, Ellen and the rest of you, is March 31st. So it's about the beginning of March. It's a good idea if you start looking at your goals and updating it. Our final update for the Rotary Club Central will be June 30th. And that one, we'd like to have it a little earlier.
But no, sorry, Nancy, we're talking about next year's goals.
Yeah.
We're talking about the goals for 22, 23.
Mhm.
Oh, those ones. Well, yeah, those would be nice if you could have it in before you become president.
Okay.
Yeah, the other goals we will leave to your predecessors.
Oh, they don't have to do it, do they? No, I think
They don't.
everybody, I keep thinking everyone does it. Yeah.
No,
So,
that is the years are very separate from that standpoint.
absolutely.
Okay, Ross.
There we go. Yes, thanks for putting this together. I've got a lot of benefit from the president-elect's gathering, and I see that the secretaries and the treasurers, who are pretty strong and valuable, a part of my team going into it, have their own manuals that you get out of the club runner. But do they, I'm not sure, but does the district host a gathering of all the secretaries of the clubs or the treasurers of the clubs so they can share information and problem solving?
Yes.
I am going to defer. The short answer is we want to, we try to, and we haven't the last couple of years, but I'm going to defer to Lauren, because we've been talking about doing something before too long there.
Yeah, we've been looking and researching one on secretaries, because there's been some turnover. And if there's any turnover at treasurers usually you have an accountant. Accounting is accounting, and it's not that different. But the secretaries are golden, and so we definitely want to put on some secretary training. And in fact, we're trying to find some of those secretaries. And I know one of my secretaries, my club, Martin Meyer, is remarkably good. And so I think we're going to use him up in that April-May time period. just strictly because we've seen literally about a 50% turnover in secretaries. So it's important.
Okay, anybody else? Okay,
Yeah, maybe, John, if you might. In regards to handover and installation, when I talked to Mary Ann, she recommended to do it in 2 different meetings, like first the handover and second the installation, to have more room from the president and the second date for the incoming president. So last year we realized it was a really tight program. 1 hour handover plus installation was quite tight. So what's your take on that?
my take on that is that clubs are self-governing, and my take on that from a district standpoint is get out of your way and help you do it the way you want to do it.
We usually have a party.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is that, and you know what, that's one of the things I didn't stress, probably should have, is that the Rotary needs to be fun. I mean, we need to enjoy it. We need to do things in a way that we're going to enjoy. And if that is a different structure, so what? You know, in fact, we're probably better if we have variety. Different clubs can see it done different ways, and some things will work, some things won't work so well. Fine, don't do those again the next year, but let's try it. Dolly.
I know it's an issue up here. I don't know if it is an issue everywhere else, but of course attendance has gone down considerably. And with COVID, a lot of members have not been attending at all. Is there any, I know RI doesn't need to have attendance records any longer. But I think most clubs probably have in their constitution and bylaws that they have to have 50% or 60% to be a valid Rotarian. Is there any courses that are put on in order to look at your constitution and maybe doing some changes and how to do that?
Boy, I don't know. I don't know, Peter, is there something on the learning? I don't recall seeing one on the Learning Center, but I don't pretend to know everything that's there. Peter, do you know?
I don't for sure, but I'm sure there's something there that if you dig down and find something in reference to clubs setting up their bylaws and constitution and so forth. But I haven't run across it myself.
Okay.
Well,
I know that's a pretty loaded question, but.
Well, Rotary International does have the club constitution that they expect people to adopt, and they have model bylaws that you can adopt or not, and you can play with. But I don't recall a how-to about that.
Okay. All right, I'll look into it. Thank you.
And John's an
Sounds
expert in constitution bylaws. You want the best guy in the room. It's John Barry.
Okay, if I have any questions, I'll be phoning you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I've had a little bit of experience with them, but I'm an amateur. I'm not a lawyer or anything. I've just done lots of volunteer organization stuff, so I've had to play in the area.
Yeah, we've had quite a few members that, of course, their attendance has really dropped over the last 2 years, and we're trying to get them back, but we're trying to live up to our bylaws as well. So it's a bit of
Well, the thing is that the bylaws, we are in an ideal world, of course, we update our bylaws every time anything changes with the world, with Rotary, whatever. But the reality is that, of course, some of them get fairly out of date, and I have a fair bit of understanding for why it's not top priority for doing it all the time. And the thing is, in this case, Rotary made a significant change in terms of attendance. And so the lightening up in terms of attendance rules are probably not reflected in a lot of club bylaws.
Right.
But yet, the other thing is that sometimes it's on things that are, I have to say this a little bit carefully, but on things that are not life and death, sometimes it's a little easier to apologize than seek permission sometimes. And it's, I don't have a lot of concern if people have got an attendance requirement in their rules that they aren't enforcing. because you don't have to. It's just a case of figuring out the what you do want to have. Thing on attendance though is that I get a little uneasy as somebody who's been perfect attendance for a long time. Full disclosure, I get a little uneasy when we don't pay any attention to attendance. The thing is that we need to make sure that Rotarians are connected to their clubs and engaged. And if we don't, they won't stay as members. And attendance is a bit of a signal around that. And we can participate in all sorts of different ways, and we don't have to be rigid about it. And it can be part of attendance anyway. For a long time, makeups were flexible. We can do it as part of service projects. We can do it a lot of different ways. But you better be engaged in doing something in your Rotary Club one way or another to stay connected to it, or you're not going to be viable as a Rotarian longer.
Good point. Thank you.
Yeah, Via.
I think David was first.
Sorry, I got Via, and then then I think there's somebody else. But Via.
Because we didn't have an in-person pets, I am for supporting each other's installations, then so whoever is, I could see different dates here. So please invite me. I'll invite you to mine too. And I'll go as long as it's not such a, here in the Lower Mainland, even Vancouver Island, then, we get to meet each other. And then the good thing is we also meet your members.
Thank you, Via. And
Thank
I
you.
would remind everybody that Peter did send out, attached to one of the notes, a listing of the presidents-elect. We had a request for that so that you could communicate with each other. And so you've got the list, so you can communicate with your colleagues. Anybody else? I heard another voice.
Thank you.
David. Oh.
Hi, David. Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got caught up and I missed the beginning. Is this recorded? Because I can't make Saturday.
It is.
Yeah.
Peter's been recording it.
So
Yeah.
I can hook on and pick up what I missed.
For sure.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will do that. I
Super.
apologize
Thanks,
for being
David.
late.
Yeah, I presume it'll be on the district site, the same place as you've got the other material, Peter?
Yes. Yeah, it'll be there.
Perfect.
Okay.
There's Trevor.
I meant to be here, but things got out of control.
No problem. Life happens. Okay, I've got
Yeah.
Trevor, and then Via's hand is still up, but it may be just because it's still up. But Trevor first.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to go back to the attendance. We found that when we were committed to attending every meeting every week, that we actually turned people off. And we started losing members because of that. And we're very loose now. But one thing I do personally do is I contact people that we haven't seen for a month, or I don't try to let it go too long, and find out what the issues are. And usually it's either family, business. It's not because of Rotary itself. And they're all generally come back for a meeting or two and then disappear again for another month. But you just got to keep at it. That's just my thoughts.
No, super. Via, and then I'll ask for maybe one or two more, and then we'll move on to the breakout. Via?
I just lowered my hand. That was from.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I'm sorry. Okay. Anything else before we move to the breakout? Okay, well, thank you, everybody, and over to you, Peter.
So the breakout is this basic question, and trying to get, it's a shame that we can't all get together as one group, but we're trying to build this sort of cohort of learning, and this is an opportunity. So what challenges do you face in sharing your learning to date with current and incoming board directors and club members, and what are the opportunities? So with that, I'd like to go into the breakout room and maybe spend about 20 minutes if there's time, John. And we just have enough time at the end for the remaining announcements.
Well, sure. We'll do a quick debrief at the end, and then Lauren, yeah, as you say, the final announcement, but we need to give Lauren a few minutes for Ukraine.
Okay.
So the plan is now to just ask for a little bit of open discussion on any highlights. Is that where we're at?
And if anyone took some notes, if they could share them with Nancy or post them in the chat.
No. Too many to put in the chat.
Yes, and I think it takes up time to put it in the chat. So just send me your notes and I will compose on them. So. And if it's handwritten, that's okay. You don't have to type it out.
Then you can't
Okay,
read
so-
it.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm
so
sure
if
I
any-
can.
For sure you
So if
can.
anybody's got notes, if they can send them to Nancy by email, that would be terrific. Are there any highlights that, before we move on to closing, are there any highlights though that people would like to share with the whole group?
Well, we talked quite a bit, John, about delegation and how we would delegate as presidents when they became presidents, how to delegate. And that was an excellent conversation, because I think that's one of the challenges that the groups have is you end up with the president being left with doing most of the stuff. So I think president-elects have to realize that they have to delegate.
Super.
In our group, one of the highlights is the president-elects are planning or are committing to talk to each of the members individually and assessing the needs if the club has met or has been meeting their expectations. And hopefully from that conversation, there would be members of the club who would step up and help in the leadership. Just like one club, they're having the mentoring system because of the some of the long-term members are not stepping up, but we know that they know much about Rotary. And having the mentoring system would assist the new members to know more about Rotary. It's, as I heard it, we've been talking about it, like one, you have become a member, and then the question is, how can you be Rotarized or how can you be a Rotarian? That's the next step. That's it.
So John, we have Dennison with his hand up.
Okay, Dennison?
Yeah, our group, I think we can summarize it in 2 points as well. For the most part, we came up with the aspect of the importance of having the secretary role, but Ian and I came up with a good, interesting topic of what does the internal communication look like inside of the actual clubs themselves. And that's actually very fascinating. Do they use WhatsApp? Like, how do they message with each other and why? And how do they do that effectively to fit their needs for their specific club? So that was quite interesting in understanding, like, how does your club internally communicate with each other and why, and where do they store the data and why?
Thanks, Dennison. Dolly?
There was a few comments about engaging members into different committees and whether or not, if they don't pick committee, then a committee gets picked for them. And that seems to be working. The other one was that they have newer members on the board and senior members, I'll say senior members, longtime Rotarians, as mentors, and that seems to be working quite well for that club. The other one, there's a few clubs where they have their board meetings in lieu of a regular meeting once a month, and that way they always have a full attendance for the board, and any of the regular members can attend that board meeting as well, which I thought was a very good idea. I think that was about some of the better highlights. Anyway, I'll send the rest of the notes to Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you. Then I think we can move on to closing remarks. Peter, you were was it you or Nancy was gonna talk about Rotary Club Central? Did you want me to say a few words, whatever you want?
Sure, but we'll pick up on that maybe down the road a bit. For anyone who needs some coaching on that, we'd be glad to provide that in conjunction with Year Ahead or separately. Nancy is the leader on that one.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. That's perfect. And remember that it doesn't have to be the president-elect that is doing the mechanics with Rotary Club Central. And if you've got somebody else involved and they need some training, we'll make sure they get that training as well. So that and the training, not to anybody that's not familiar with it, I say training, but it's pretty light. It's it's pretty easy to log in and see the goals in Rotary Club Central and deal with them. So it is really easy training.
So John, if anybody does want to know about how to record Rotary Club Central or input the goals, Ian Grant and I have presentations already done that we did it with the new assistant governors, that we'd be more than happy to meet with them and show them what we can do, how they can do it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks, Nancy.
Okay. So that's the active offer there. So Peter, do we have anything else, or are we good to go on to Lauren now?
That's it. On to Lauren, please.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks, John. Just thought I'd bring people up to date as we're meeting, and I'll do the same thing on Saturday as it relates to Ukraine. So I've had lots of emails, I've had lots of phone calls, I've had lots of discussions going on, and there is, if you can think of an idea, it's out there already. There are a lot of people trying to raise money for the Ukraine. Really, we just want to try and give you a few options so you know your money, if you're willing to give it to the Ukraine, that it's going to get to where you want it to get to. So right now, there's 4 different ways to kind of give to the Ukrainian movement. One, of course, has been the Red Cross. They had a matching basis with the federal and provincial governments up to $10 million. Well, that $10 million has been matched literally within the first 2 or 3 days. So there is no more matching. They're still taking dollars. They're still getting supplies to the ground. This is what Red Cross does relatively well because there's Red Crosses all over the world. And they do a lot of this kind of disaster stuff and getting supplies onto planes and getting it to there. There are a number of clubs within the district who have not had such a great experience with the Red Cross relative to BC fires and BC floods. They quite often hang on to the money a little longer. They don't quite get it to the people that have been impacted. But that's only through recent conversations that I've had up in Burns Lake and around the Smithers area during the BC fires scenario. I know that's very different when they get to international, but the fact is that they are a viable option. Shelter Box also is on the ground as we speak, and they are on assessing the needs. Right now, it doesn't look like shelter is the #1 problem, but it will be because there's more and more people that are leaving Ukraine and arriving in Poland, Hungary, and Romania. Poland has done a remarkable job of keeping people housed and putting them in their own personal residences and putting them up in areas. And it's a really testament, I think, to Poland and Romania and Hungary for what they've been able to do with the number of refugees that have crossed those borders. This refugee status has climbed from literally 300,000 or 400,000 people last week to 1 million people this week. So it's significant. It's changing every second of the day. Also, in addition to that, we actually have a Disaster Aid Canada. This is a Rotary-led fund that has been used. Actually, Trevor's Rich and Stevenson Club has been doing some stuff with us on the BC floods and the BC fires, but they've also had some very good success with Disaster Aid Canada. Disaster Aid Canada is run out of a Rotary Club actually in Ladysmith, and they do all their fundraising, of which they direct all their funds to Rotary clubs on the ground. And so they are also online. You can do these donations online, and you get tax receipts for that as well. So that's another option. Today, literally today, Rotary is allowing us to give donations to what's called the Disaster Relief Fund. They're going to be taking personalized donations till April the 30th. And when you give donations to the Disaster Relief Fund in RI, it is a Rotary Foundation donation. And you will be getting Paul Harris Fellow points and Paul Harris Fellow donation levels. And also you will be achieving per capita levels within your club, but it doesn't come back to the district in 3 years' time through the share. It's a restricted fund. And so those dollars will be allocated to Ukrainian relief efforts over into both in Poland, Romania, Hungary, and in parts of the Ukraine itself as well. The district is being asked to give up potentially district designated funds. If we have unspent global grant funds or district grant funds, they are asking us to potentially give up some of those funds, and we have till June 30th to kind of do that as well. So there's lots of moving parts. Ultimately, we are probably going to have a session with all the clubs, like of an open forum for all the district here, probably within the next 7 to 10 days. And the only reason I say that, I'm trying to coordinate with a shelter box representative, with Disaster Aid Canada representative, and with a Rotary Foundation representative to come in and basically tell us what they're doing and how they're getting these monies and how they're spending those dollars. So we'll also be sending out a communication to your presidents and of course the president-elects, as we try and keep you informed and knowledgeable as you're preparing yourself as you take on this role, so that we can get the best communication out there and that the clubs are being able to do what they want to do, and that's help. So I'll leave it at that. Any questions?
So it's Rotary Disaster Relief Fund.
Yep.
That we're talking about. That's great, because we have our meeting tomorrow, our members meeting tomorrow. So I want to mention that. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, that just came out hot today. It is on the website. If you go to the Rotary Foundation, it's on the website. We'll be sending out links here to your clubs here very shortly. They're available, and we're making it as easy as possible to donate. Everybody is seriously concerned with Ukraine efforts. We all want to help, and we're doing the best we can.
So Canada,
So Lauren,
yep.
Canada is going to open up invitation to Ukrainian refugees. Would there be a possibility for Rotary members to be sponsors? I mean, I think it's a little early days, but is that in the works, or is that something we can work towards down the road?
Yeah, I think the federal government is allowing people to, if you have family members or people that you know, if they really want people to be coming into, where they're going to be taken care of by family members and taken housing and that type of stuff, they're also opening up to other refugee statuses as well. So I don't know the criteria, Steve, but I do know that, for instance, I know you don't know by my name, but I'm 50% Ukrainian, so my mother's Ukrainian, and so this is very important to us. And my mother's maiden name is Pandurka, so. And I had the pleasure of being at Smithers yesterday and going to UFO, which is Ukrainian food awesome. And so they got great food, but it's really great to see the Ukrainians on the ground helping Ukrainians and the Canadians caring too as well. Trevor, you had a question.
Yeah, no, the way I read that email that you sent out was that the Rotary clubs in those areas, in those countries, can apply for a $50,000 grant.
Correct. Yes. So there's two portions of the disaster relief fund. So one is that the Rotary's opened up the disaster relief fund grant process. So clubs near the borders or within the Ukraine that are not heavily impacted by the war measures can apply up to $50,000 for a disaster relief fund. Just like we had the chance to apply for $25,000 for the BC fires and for the BC floods. And we didn't take it only because there were some restrictions the way they wanted to be controlled and spent, and we had already raised a fair bit of dollars. But in the case of that, they're now applying for those up to $50,000 grants. But we're also allowing us to raise additional funds from the individuals and from districts to top up that fund. And those funds will be strictly allocated on just like they would if it was polio or any type of restricted fund to be spent in the Ukrainian efforts.
Okay, Nancy, I saw your hand up briefly. Were you trying to get to speak, or is that an accident?
No, it wasn't to do with the funds, the Ukrainian funds. So I thought I would wait till you get to the end of your presentation.
Oh, okay. Is there anything else because we're only into questions on Ukraine. Is there anything else on Ukraine? Okay, then Nancy, you're on.
All right. I just wanted to assure my group that the discussion we had on the breakout was amazing. And I do have 2 pages of notes. So just so everyone knows that when you send me your notes, I will compile them and everybody will get a copy of the discussion. So I'll share them with everybody that's here.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. So then, as we say, is there anything else for the good of Rotary? Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. It's been, a nice full session, and we kept it pretty much to an hour and a half, which was kind of our target. So thank you very much, and we will see you again for the year ahead for a number of things this year. Hopefully, more of them face to face. Thank you, everybody.
Thank